Today, I want you to try writing the beginning of something. It could be at the beginning of a chapter. It could be the beginning of chapter 1. If you've been waiting for a chance, if you've been waiting for a sign from the universe to tell you to sit down and write, well, guess what? This video is it. Today, I'm going to go over 6 ways. 6 ways that I've used in the past. 6 ways that I like to begin chapter 1. I know that writing is hard, and writing can be incredibly daunting and scary. And sometimes you find yourself there for the first time, especially if you're young, or regardless of your age, you're trying writing for the first time. You sit at your desk in front of the word processor, and the blank page lies before you. The little cursor icon blinks on and off, at you, and you don't know what to do. The purpose of this video is not to give you templates for how to begin a story. These are just really ideas, concepts, the ways that to just help you get moving. And what I want you to do today, I'm going to present you 6 different ways to begin chapter 1, and I want you to pick one. And if you don't know which one, well, guess what? These are 6, which is perfect for a 6-sided dice. Roll a die and see which one you get from 1 to 6. And write the beginning of that chapter. It could be the chapter you should be working on next. Or, if you've been waiting for a chance to start that story, this could very well be chapter 1 of your story. And so, without any more further ado, I would like to kindly ask you to take a deep breath, just to clear your mind. Inhale deeply, and exhale slowly. Clear your mind, and think about your story. Number 1. Begin by imagining what the location of this scene looks like. Because clearly, in your gut, or I guess in your outline, you know where this story takes place, where this story begins. It begins in a point in time and a place in time. What does this place look like? Much like you would set the stage for a play, you're gonna set up the stage for where the story begins. Show the reader, describe to the reader what the place looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it smells like. Take them into the room and guide them almost like the camera guides the viewer's point of view from the location, from the established location, to the main character. Simple as that. Set the stage. Describe and guide the reader to our main character. What happens after that? What should you write after you've established that? Well, it's up to you. Again, these are just ways to start. Set the stage. That's one. Another way, number 2, one of my favorite ones. I like to call it 5 minutes before midnight. Begin the story at what can only be described 5 minutes before the big thing's about to happen. There's this kind of sense in storytelling that stories should begin at the lowest, most uninteresting part of the story and escalate like a roller coaster goes up the hill and up and up and up and up and up and up, and it becomes more interesting and more exciting, and then it ends. And while some may argue that's the way stories should be, I don't particularly care for that. I actually think stories should begin at the exciting bit and get more exciting from there on. I would very much prefer the roller coaster to start right at the peak, go down, and get back up. But that's another conversation for another day. Begin this chapter at a pivotal moment in the story, 5 minutes before it's about to happen. Imagine preparations, imagine people being nervous. There's something big that is about to happen, something exciting, something wonderful, or something dreadful. And it's happening in, looks at watch, 5 minutes. What does the atmosphere feels like? Who is doing what and where? What is going on? There's 5 minutes, just 5 minutes before the big bad shows up, before that certain person arrives, before the meteorite hits Earth. 5 minutes. What's happening? sometimes all you need is just a little bit of tension to get things going. Jump in. Now, that's number 2. 5 minutes before midnight. Number 3, a classic, I think, and by no means less exciting, a personal introduction. In stories that are told first person, I think it's completely understandable to have an introduction of your character introducing themselves to the reader. And it especially makes sense for stories that are first person past tense, because they are quite literally the character telling you the story. So I think a moment of introduction makes complete sense. Some other writers may argue that it's more fitting to have the introduction a little bit later, because introductions can be a little bit slow, but they don't have to be. It all depends, again, on how you write it. If you're uncertain on how to begin chapter 1, begin with your character introducing themselves. Show the reader the character's personality in the way they talk and the way they express themselves. The power of first-person narratives is the ability to show us the inside of a person's head, how they view the world, how they act, how they speak. Show their biases, show the very specific way they twist language, and they twist the things that people around them do and say. There is nothing more intriguing, dreadful, and beautiful than a person's mind. So that's number 3. Begin with an introduction. If you're uncertain on how your story should begin, and by the way, I said first person past tense, but third person past tense also makes sense. It's because even in stories that are third person, you gotta remember that your narrator is actually a person. It's a person in this world. It may be a nameless narrator, it may be someone we know, it may be a ghost, an apparition, an older god living in the dark expanses of space. It's someone. And they can introduce your main character. They can give us a bit of insight. Because remember that even your narrator, even if they're someone nameless, they have character. And they have a way to tell the story. So that's one way. Number 4 is one of my favorite ways. It's a classic. It's one that I've made videos on this channel. In the middle of things. En media res. Begin right in the middle of a scene. Right as something is happening. One of my favorite ones is beginning a story with characters having a conversation. Right in the middle of it. Right as though you're sitting at another table and you just overheard something and turned to look at them. That right there is where the story begins. Characters in the middle of a conversation. Characters in the middle of talking about something. Hopefully something relevant to the story. It might even be right in the middle of the heist. It might be in the middle of something mundane, like a character eating breakfast, or a character literally about to be murdered. In the middle of things. The power of en media res is that it immediately launches us into action. It jumps over the anticipation, it jumps over the tension. We're already in there, and it gives the reader a bunch of questions. Where are we? What are we doing? What is going on? Okay, I definitely know what's going on. That guy's about to get murdered. It proposes questions. A little bit of a side note here, because I'll remind you now. One of the things that I find in revision, especially when I have stories that begin with en media res, is that I always overlook describing the location. So that might be something you will have to fix in later revision. But revision is something you gotta deal with later. Right now, what's the purpose right now? To get writing done. So, consider a pivotal point in the story, a very important point in the timeline that you want to write about, and begin, not at the beginning, but right in the middle of it happening. And especially right in the middle of it going completely wrong. It's always way more exciting when the story begins in the middle of the heist, and the heist is going super bad. Now, that's only 1 through 4. What about 5? Number 5 is the aftermath. Begin chapter 1. Not at 5 minutes before midnight, not in the middle of midnight. After it. As the fallout descends to the world, as the fires begin to die down, as that cataclysmic moment has shattered your character's life, then begin the story. It can be something as dramatic, of course, as the world ending, or of course it can be something as equally dramatic as your character's broken heart. Whatever it is, whatever you thought the story was going to begin not at the beginning of that climax, not in the middle of it, right at the end. The world has ended. The antagonist has won. The world is forever changed, and so is your character. Situations like these are a great establishing point in a story, because it lets you see the character at their weakest and lowest moment. It's all because we can all relate to moments like that. Moments where you witness something, the loss of someone, the loss of life, the loss of things you had, and you feel, as you're watching your house burn, that nothing worse could ever happen to you. That this here is the worst moment of your life. And those are powerful moments, personal, powerful moments. And it makes for a great launching point of a story. Because, of course, things are going to get worse. And there's going to be more suffering incoming, because that's what stories are made of. But a beginning like that serves to establish that this character's story is going to be about struggling. And about healing. And about fighting. And about hardships. And I think sometimes it's good to just state that outright at the beginning. This is not going to be a happy story. But aren't those the most fun to write, though? I don't know. I'm really guilty of that. There's one more. 1 through 5. But there's one more. One that is almost a guilty pleasure. And that is number 6. Reflection. I like telling stories in the first person because it allows the main character, the protagonist, to share with us their views on the world, how they feel about things, to really, really drench the narrative in their own character, to fill the space between the words with their own colors, a moment of reflection. It also really helps because sometimes you can feel in stories that are third-person narration, particularly, in stories where you never see a person's internal thoughts, you only read what they say. You can often feel that you don't really know them. You can feel that you don't understand how they're making the choices they're making. You can even think that they're not thinking their actions through because you're not in their head. But when you get to be inside of their head, when you get to write not only how they justify things, but their own reflection on it. It also makes them feel a lot more developed because there's something incredibly personal about justifying your actions. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't stop to reflect things. And some may argue that's an element of maturity, to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, is this what I want to do? Is this, have I brought this upon myself? Is this all my fault? The answer is probably yes. And that's fun. It's fun when a character is forced to look and, as the word says, reflect on things. What have you done, protagonist? What have you done to yourself and to the people around you? Or what do you think of the world around you? How are you, petty little man, going to change the world for the better? I don't know. I love moments of reflection. It just shows you. Some may argue that they can get preachy, but I feel like it's a balance. It's a balance between the character talking about what they really want to say, and for situations like that, I try my best to never put any of my color. Never use them as soapboxes. Let them talk about what they want to say. As I've said in the past, writing to me becomes easier when I let go of control. And in stories that are first person, to me, the writing is easiest when I just let them speak. I like to not think of myself as the director, not even the script writer. I'm not the person in the chair going, action, cut. I am the camera person. I'm right behind the character with the camera. We're doing that reality TV show stuff, and I'm following them. The camera person never talks. You don't even know they're there. But they're doing their job. And my job is just to follow them through. When my character wants to turn to the camera and start talking, they talk. They talk. You let them talk. You don't stop them. Because they'll show you themselves. They'll show you the real character. And that right there is gold. I love that stuff. But now, I've gone on for quite a while. I've proposed to you here 6 different ways to begin a story. 6 different ways to begin a chapter, 6 different ways to begin chapter 1, finally. The most important thing about writing, and you have to remember that writing is a verb, it's a thing you do. You must sit down and write. You must. No matter how scary and how daunting it may seem, you have to make the time and just begin. And sometimes, I don't know. I think sometimes it might help to just, here are 6 ways. Just start that scene. And some may say, that's the easy way out. And I don't think so. Because no matter what you write, you're going to have to edit things. And more often than not, I'll just tell you now, I spend most of my editing process on the first third of the story. Before I knew the characters truthfully. Before I really knew what the story was about. First chapters get the most work. Because I don't know. I haven't met the characters for real. I've brainstormed them. And I've spent time, thinking what they look like and what they can say. They could say. But I don't know them for real. And main characters will always surprise you. And, I would be wrong if I told you that my first chapters stay intact. I've changed the first chapters of pretty much all of my novels. But I've just completely cut them out. Justine's Blood, there was 2 pages of beginning that I just cut out because it wasn't what I needed. You will find out later in revision what works for you and what doesn't. But you can't get there. You can't get to revising that story if you don't write it first. You can't edit what you don't have. And you can't know what your story is really about until you've gone from beginning to the end. Okay? Okay. So once again, if you want to take the challenge, today I want to challenge you to write the beginning of a scene. And if you feel generous enough to share in the comments down below, you're welcome to do so, or just tag me on Twitter and Tumblr. I'll give you a reblog or a retweet. Spend today a little bit of your time, 10 minutes, writing the beginning. Pick one of these 6. Set the stage, 5 minutes before midnight, the introduction, in the middle of things, the aftermath, and reflection. One of these. Just pick one, and if you can't, roll a dice. Okay? Okay. I hope that they helped, and I hope that if anything, I gave you another point of view. Again, these are not templates, because I'm not telling you how to write the scene. I'm just giving you ways that you can begin. And who knows, you might revise it. And who knows, by the way, you can mix and match. My stories begin with a combination of things. Sometimes you set the stage, and then you take us into the 5 minutes to midnight bit. Sometimes you're setting the stage inside of the aftermath. They're ultimately the same thing. But they're ways of looking at things. And if you have your own ways of looking at this, if you have your own favorite ways of beginning stories, let me know in the comments down below. I am always open to seeing what you have to say. Because at the end of it all, we're all here learning about writing. This is a craft where none of us become master. And I'm always learning, and you should too. Okay? Okay. In case you don't know me, my name is Max, also known as MKaren. I do writing advice videos here on YouTube twice a week. On Fridays, I do regular videos, and on Sundays, I do vlogs or audio logs or whatever I'm doing. Generally just updates. If you want to follow me, and if you want to know what I'm up to, you can give me a follow on Twitter. Twitter.com/Mr. Karen. That is MISTREKIRIN. Mr. Karen. For updates, when videos go up, what I'm up to, and just writing #relatable things. And of course, if you really enjoyed this video and you want to make sure that I can continue making videos like this one for the foreseeable future, please consider checking out my Patreon. That is patreon.com/mkaren. By pledging just $1 a month, just one tiny little dollar a month, you can watch my videos a week in advance and my workshops a whole month for $1. That's all it takes. And of course, if you pledge more, you can get cool things like my writing scene mailed straight to your doorstep every single month, and a shout out at the end of these videos, like the following people. Thank you so much to my top tier patrons who are helping me do this. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. But now, I've taken enough of your time. I hope you go out there, you take the challenge, and you go and get some writing done. Okay? And one more thing. Beginnings are scary. But I want you to remember that no matter how long it's been, no matter how many years you've gone without writing, no matter how many stories you've begun and you haven't finished, you break the chain today. It doesn't matter if it's been years since the last time you wrote. If you write today, you will break that chain. And you won't be able to say, you won't ever be able to say again that you haven't written in years.